Kia ora koutou katoa, ko Jermaine Reihana tōku ingoa, ko Kupu Tupu tēnei. Welcome everybody, this is Kupu Tupu. Here we are about to investigate and dive into some of the kupu that are quite significant to, I guess, our understanding of some of the most significant kupu in Te Ao Māori. I have a few guests with me today. We have Ari, Coleman Williams, and we have Morgan Allen, and our hoa, David Bailey. Today the kupu that we'll be diving into is Whenua. Whenua, I guess, is sort of a kupu that pertains to our understanding of the land in which we exist on. Also, Whenua means placenta, and with the idea that these islands that exist in the plethora of Te Moana Nui a Kiwa are sort of like wombs almost, in which we live our lives and we give life. So I guess what I want to put to our visitors here today, our guests, is what does your relationship with Whenua look like? Mm-hmm. How do we engage with that? And also, we'll also be touching on aspects of kaitiakitanga as well, and how we see Whenua in a modern context. So I guess we'll shoot this over to you, Morgan, and okay. Delve deeper into that kōrero.
Sure. So what does Whenua mean to me? I mean, Whenua is a word that I only really became familiar with probably about a year ago, you know, and very much so in that direct translation of a Whenua meaning land, right. You know, earth. And probably a word that I came across first thinking about we talk about kaitiakitanga. That's
right, ka pai.
And about, you know, how Māori view ownership of land.
Aye.
So it was probably my first encounter with the word Whenua, you know, and reconciling that with kind of what I knew of, you know, issues with Māori land settlements in the past and things like that. But what's been really interesting recently is learning more about, you know, Whenua and its meaning, you know, ecologically, and how it pertains to our relationship with the land and how the land provides for us and looks after us. And yeah, I think that's what I'm kind of really interested in talking about today. Figuring that out.
Ka pai, yeah. I guess more recently, David, we were working together on an exhibition here at Depot Artspace.
Yes, that's right.
Which was called Whenua Land. I guess what were some of the highlights that you saw or experienced with working on that kaupapa?
The main thing is quite an education for me because being American, which is all about money and power and everything, it's quite different. I've been learning a lot because I just don't think like that. So I'm having to relearn and appreciate what the Māori type of land is, us basically. There's just lots of different paintings and exhibitions that were quite different for me, basically. So it's a big learning curve for me, really. Because even though I don't try to poison the planet, I don't think about it. So now I'm starting to think, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't do such and such, or it's quite different for me to think like that, really.
No, you're right. I guess for me personally, I mean, one thing that became quite, I guess I had an epiphany. It was like so I travelled to and fro from West Auckland to Devonport, Te Haukapua, and I noticed that in my journey, which is about approximately nearly 10 k's, I suppose, I never set foot on the Mara or on the Whenua. You know, my feet never actually touch the grass. No. You know, so I guess what does our relationship to whenua look like in a modern context? And I guess a key component of that is kaitiakitanga. What is our role as mankind and sort of retaining and sustaining whenua for generations to come? There's a very important proverb in te ao Māori that is used in regards to whenua. It says, whatu ngarongaro te tangata, toi tū te whenua. People perish, but the land remains. So I guess, Ari, I'll put it to you. What are the sort of, I guess, what are the ways that we can actively engage in kaitiakitanga in a sort of modern context?
A great question. I guess there's so many things that sort of come to mind, but I think the first thing initially is being aware of where your position is with the whenua to then bring in that kaitiakitanga and then understanding what does it mean to be good kaitiaki, how do you have manakitanga in that realm. And I guess if you can understand the land or what's going on within the land, what are the problems, what are the things that could be doing better, what are the things that are flourishing, and then sort of working around, okay, this is a problem, what are some ways that we can look after, how can we be good guardians of that land, then also what's going really well, how can we continue whatever that is and keep that moving forward so that it doesn't fall back, but that you're continually moving forward in that process in that space, but then having that ownership over it as well.
It's really interesting, and maybe you guys can speak to this with Dave from your experience, because, you know, as a Pākehā person, you know, growing up, you know, those values weren't instilled in my upbringing, you know?
No, they weren't. No.
You know, that's not...
We use and use and use and use.
Yeah, there's not that, I mean, you know, I remember being in school and, you know, there was maybe the odd campaign that would be about reduce, reuse, recycle. You know, that movement was kind of a thing when I was in school. But it didn't have that same meaning or significance as to what you're describing here from Te Ao Māori, you know? That's like a...
I mean, the main difference of thinking is Māori don't own land, but Pākehās do. There's a whole industry about owning land.
Yeah.
So until you actually change that, it's very hard. You know, because it's all about owning and power and money and typical Pākehā type. Even though that's what I am, it's what it's like. You know.
How can you own something you're beholden to?
Yeah.
You know?
Ai, kia ora.
Which I think is really interesting.
I guess our tupuna, we're always of the understanding that, this land isn't ours, you know. I guess there's common misconception with ownership. It's like owning a car or owning a house, you know. It gives a sort of materialistic sort of connotation to it. And that is a very Western perspective. But as our tupuna saw it, kaitiakitanga was of the idea that we are protectors and caregivers and guardians of this whenua.
A lot of it is about respect because, like the Mount Vic now, where you can't drive a car up there. And I can understand why, because it's the head of the earth and you respect it. Of course, everyone, Pākehā and most of the locals complain. They say, well, no, we want to be able, because they don't understand. And I guess in a lot of cases they don't want to understand because they don't only see it from one point of view. So the whole point of educating people is to get, well, there's 2 points. So, there's always a compromise, always.
Most definitely.
So it's trying to live together, basically. But we're all New Zealanders first. Well, I'm not New Zealand, but we're all citizens
You're
of
a New Zealander. You're a New Zealander, David.
But we're first, basically. So we do all actually have to work together.
Kia ora. Tēnā koe.
It's interesting talking about, I don't know if you've been out to Waitakaris recently. Well, we shouldn't be, you know, we have. But that whole dynamic there that's playing out, I think, is a really interesting example of like a wider issue, if you know what I mean, which is that we talk about this like understanding in our relationship with land, and, you know, we're living here in a country where we have many cultures existing together, you know. But we also have this really strong culture that is Māori
Aye.
that, I think has so much to offer to this country that hasn't necessarily had the chance to offer historically,
Kia ora.
and because of that, often, we're talking about that lack of understanding, and I see that, an example of that playing out in the Waitakaris with the Rahui, because, at first when the Rahui was placed, it wasn't supported by the council.
Yeah, that's right.
And there was, a lot of talk about, well, what are a few people really going to do? Who are these iwi to say that we can't go out and go for our tramp that we do every month, that we enjoy, But it's been interesting as time has gone on and more support has come in for the Rahui, and there's been more information and education about it. I definitely feel from my perspective you're starting to see that dynamic change a little bit, and I wonder if that's kind of a sign of things to come in other areas and how we relate to our whenua.
Well, it's similar to global warming that some people believe in and some people don't. But now that you see there's a reserve in the North Shore now has got in Birkenhead sort of area. It's got it, the diary kind of back.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, it's obvious. It's not. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to think, well, it's happening.
Absolutely, you're right. Yeah, I guess I mean, it's interesting, when we look at tikanga like Rahui, which is in this respect, in the Waitakere Ranges relates to whenua, but also the ngahere. And, I think of tikanga as a very traditional, very customary utilisation of protocols in order to manage those sorts of things, and that's another interesting thing that we could dive into is is tikanga sort of stagnant? Does it sort of just exist in the realm of our tupuna? And I guess one thing about the Māori worldview is that it has become very adaptable to a modern day context, and that can sometimes influence the way tikanga can be a part of, I guess, the modernities of society. And it's that adaptable sort of nature that gives us a more clearer sort of understanding about how it can be implemented, how we can work together to find the greater good for all. So Rahui is a really I've constantly I've been a part of that conversation, and been working through these sorts of kaupapa through council, and it's really interesting to see it develop, and as people become more aware, as society becomes more aware of these practices, it gives us another sort of facet to approach these sorts of kaupapa with a well-rounded and holistical sort of perspective. I mean, where does that start? I mean, does it start in education?
Yeah.
Where does so if education, does that start in our schools, in our kura?
Yeah, I mean, it's the next generation. So you've got to start. The older generation, hard to change. But
you're speaking for yourself.
I was speaking for myself, because you don't appreciate. It's hard. But if you start at the grassroots from now on, it will naturally, that will become the norm. Might take a few years, but
Aye. Let's go. Yeah.
One thing I think I've always found really interesting about whenua is whenua doesn't just mean land, but it also means placenta, doesn't it?
Yes, that's very interesting, isn't it?
And I think that idea of, when a child is born, the whenua, the placenta, is taken and put back into the whenua, into the placenta, to me is quite a beautiful, almost circular narrative that
Aye.
just encompasses that whole relationship. I don't know if, I mean, obviously, is that a practice that you're aware of that might still be playing out today in some places?
Absolutely.
Or?
Yes, absolutely. So the tikanga of bearing the placenta in the whenua sort of reinforces that connection and that relationship, especially for tangata whenua, for Māori, is a very, very significant part of that person's growth and understanding of their identity, and it ties and links that person to the whenua. And essentially, it's almost like it's like rebirth almost, because when we pass away and we are once again buried in the whenua,
Right, yeah.
we are then born into a new reality, into a spiritual reality, and that's a really interesting thing too. It's like it's like the shedding of the skin. It's you become this entity that is sort of transient, and we exist in this multiverse of realities, and we're constantly being reborn into them, and that idea of planting the placenta in the whenua is a really, really interesting one, and it's a practice that is being quite commonly used now, and it's really encouraging to hear that and to see that tikanga once again being perpetuated throughout Te Ao Māori, and there's lots of I know there's a few initiatives now. I think there's some in the South Island, some here in the North Island, where there are communal sort of spaces where people can come and plant their placenta in the whenua,
Right.
Oh, really?
in these areas. Yeah, absolutely. And it's a really awesome way to sort of actively engage with and participate in tikanga Māori, which is really, really awesome. I guess too, when we look at another perspective of whenua, it's that matriarchal connection, and I guess shooting this question to you, Ari, as a wahine, how does whenua, I guess, how does whenua feel to you? Like, what does it mean to you as a wahine? And knowing that, there's the practice of, the placenta that's, being buried in the whenua, so yeah, if you could speak to that.
Yeah, sure. I guess just as you guys were talking, I was thinking about I guess if you look at whānau on the whole, or if you look at what it means to be part of a bigger body, with hapu also meaning pregnant, or iwi meaning bones, and looking at how there's interconnectivity with that, and understanding from the dust we were born and from the dust we will return, and having that circular, sort of like how you were just saying.
Yeah, it's like a cool way.
And just understanding where you fit into that ecosystem, if you will, but not as an individual, but I guess looking as it is, like, how can my strengths as women, or like the strengths of man, how can they come together for the betterment of all people, and not realising, or I guess recognising where that fits into like your mana, or where that fits into like your mauri, and understanding I guess understanding where your strength is in that, and drawing from that, or from your tipuna, and being one in that, and then with the land as well. Like, I guess I'm just trying to like form my words properly. Yeah, I guess it's just like understanding that interconnectivity within that life force, and knowing that being one with that land is bigger than just like that action or that tikana, but the spiritual, meaning behind that and what that wairua means as like a whole collective
Aye,
sort of
aye,
thing.
aye,
Yeah.
aye. Do I have to be on my own whenua, or do I have to be on, do I have to be on my own whenua to have a solid relationship with it? Or is it sort of, is there an overarching sort of theme to that? I'm not sure. Ari?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was just thinking, even for myself, like if I look at my whakapapa, I've got ancestry in Germany and Denmark, even in Te Ao Māori at Te Pori. So I've got this big, I guess if I think of that for myself, I think, oh, well then, with that thinking, should I then go back to Germany or should I go to Denmark? Or and so I guess for myself, being occupied or living in Auckland, what does that mean? And so I guess when I think of that, if I think of like if you're in a relationship with someone, you don't want it to be like this robotic thing. You want it to have communication so that can grow. And I was thinking, the Gregorian calendar that we follow is quite like to think that we only have one calendar is quite in my opinion, quite a Western way of thinking. And I guess because the Gregorian calendar that we follow in New Zealand is quite this like but then if you look at maramataka for example with Matariki, that's just being and recognising it's not just it's this day in this month that Matariki rises, it's being aware of the stars are rising, and actually that's how we came to this thing, was by following that and sort of looking at it in terms of well, if this is my relationship with the land, what does it mean to go along maramataka or reading the land in terms of how you interact with it. Should I go fishing on these days? Yes, no, why? Why is that? What is the land saying? What can we read from the stars? And I guess although you could go back to your marae and you could be doing things there with the whenua, or I could go to Germany and look at sustainability there, even though it's not Aotearoa, but following that kaupapa. But I guess if you're not from Auckland, if you're from Taupo or something, but you're here for work or study, I guess being aware and awake in your whenua that you're in, and just having that sustainable approach or that kaitiakitanga wherever you are, and just holding that in your heart, and it just being something, not that something you do, but something that you are as kaitiaki.
So it's not necessarily to do with the location in which you're in. It's more so it's a concept, it's an idea. It's a kaupapa. Essentially, you're fighting with it. I feel at times, and I guess that's sort of just a part of living in a Western and colonized lifestyle. So therefore, kaitiakitanga is an active sort of perpetuation of decolonization in a way, decolonizing the mind,
right?
And you're right, Ari, in that you were talking about it's a relationship, it's about communication, it's about it's a sort of cyclical sort of understanding that it's a cyclical that has a cyclical effect. Is that I have to be more mindful of every sort of aspect of my life and how that affects my environment, and more so whenua. And it's what totally blows me away about whenua is that whenua has endured so much, so much, change in the name of progress, or and it's given so much. Yet, with a population of 7 billion people, we probably haven't given back as much as the whenua has given to us. And
well, it doesn't take anything away. I mean, you have natural disasters, but it's not like it only gives. You think about it.
You're right. Absolutely.
The sun is always going to rise. It's always going to set.
True.
The plants are always going to photosynthesize. There's all these processes that are there unconditionally, which we rely on.
And take for granted.
We totally take for granted.
Absolutely, that's right. We're a virus. We really are. We are a virus.
Or a parasite.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
bit of both actually.
Yeah, a bit of both.
So, you know, what is the rongoa? You know, what is, how do we aid and how do we use this to replenish this mātauranga, you know, this knowledge of kaitiakitanga and whenua. You know, how do we look at it from a different perspective to retain this and be more thankful for, you know, our presence here on the whenua. I think as long as we're making an active approach and engagement and taking care of papa tuanuku, I guess it enables me to get to sleep at night.
Yeah.
At times, you know, but just to be mindful. It's about mindfulness, and constantly working at it. You know, it's like I said, it's a journey. You know, we're all in this waka together. You know, so ultimately, it's something, you know, that we can work on. You know, step by step. You know.
Wow, I think as far as first episode of Kupu Tupu, that's probably you probably summed it up pretty well there.
Tēnā koe, yeah, absolutely. I guess I just want to thank our manuhiri for today. Ari, tēnā koe, Morgan, David, tēnā tātou katoa, kua huri mai ki tēnei hōtaka, ko tēnei a Kupu Tupu me ki rere atu nei. To everybody that's tuned in, tēnā koutou katoa. My name is Jermaine Reihana, and this is Kupu Tupu. Kia ora.